This is exactly what Canadians need right now. Hey, leadership listeners. Today I have a great guest, and my guest is a global leadership development coach, professional speaker, corporate trainer, and author of a great leadership book, The Way of the Co-Creative Leader, Steffan Surdek. Hi, Steffan.
Hey, hi, Alexander. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yes, absolutely. It's my honor to have you here.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. We've been talking for a while, and I thought this could be something fun to explore together.
Yes, absolutely. And today I'd like to talk about what holds corporate leaders back from growing. But before we jump to that question, to the topic, I'd like to ask you, Stefan, just to let people learn more about you a little bit. What made you who you are today?
So there's a lot of things that made me who I am today. What surprises people a bit about me is I come from a technical background. I used to be in software development. I lived in that world for 18 years. And eventually I needed to do something different. So I kind of transformed my roles in the teams that I was working with to be more like the big brother. So the person that people would go to when they needed help, when they needed support, when they didn't know what to do, and have more roles where I was coordinating teams rather than doing the work itself. So I went from there to doing some training internally, to doing some coaching internally at the companies where I was in. And eventually I found my way to the coaching world. And maybe about 10, 15 years ago, well, more 10 to 12 years ago, um, I had like a personal transformation that hit me hard, which is kind of what opened up the door to who I am today.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I know that you have a really great book. It's special book. What can
What
you
makes
tell
it
us
special?
about? Yeah, I say because, this special book because uh, I see what you're talking about on social media and your mindset and how you see leadership from your perspective. And this is basically why we connected, because we have the same mindset and we see leadership from that, I would say, that from that angle. Of course, both of us, we have a little bit different approach, but in general is the same. But your book is very special for me. Why? Because I see how people react on your book, and also based on your mindset, how you add value to people. This book is really good fit for corporate world to practice that book, especially those 5 steps that you described in your book. Can you tell us more a little bit about the book?
So the book is separated in two parts. The first part of the book is more or less what I call the basics of leadership development. It's what I show, what I teach every leader that I work with. So how to be more self-aware, how to get clear on your values, how to notice your impact in the world, how to be more intentional in how you behave. If you don't have that foundation, you can be however great you think you can be, but I'll never really be able to teach you much about co-creative leadership and help you embody that because you're lacking kind of the core and the foundation. So even when I start, it's always where I start with people. I'll tell them about co-creative leadership, but we're actually talking more about the fundamentals of noticing your impact in meetings, noticing um, how intentional you are in your actions versus just being reactive to everything.
Yeah.
So co-creative leadership itself goes around 5 core values, well, not core values, but 5 key skills that leaders need to develop. And the first key skill is being a voice among many in the conversation. So this is about, as a leader, many leaders feel that they need to speak last. Because as soon as they bring an idea, their team goes, yes, Alexander, let's do that. That's what you want, right? And what the leaders want more often than not is just to be able to bring an idea and have it be discussed, have it be debated, but teams don't always react to it that way in corporate environments. The second key skill is around unleashing the leaders around you. So inside companies, we have what I like to refer to as dormant leaders. And dormant leaders are these people that if you ask them what they do outside of their work environment, they're the coaches of your kids' sports teams. They're leaders in their community. But when it comes to the office, they may not have a leadership title, so they don't feel legitimate being a leader in that type of environment, in that type of situation. So unleashing the dormant leaders means how can you help those people really be the leaders that they can be inside of the workplace instead of having them hold back. The third key skill is around building capacity on your team. And building capacity on your team is basically around how do you develop your people. So as leaders, we have this misconception that, yes, I have a training budget. Yes, I have money. I will send people on training courses. That means nothing. Yes, it's useful. Yes, it's good. The real question, though, is as a leader, can you be a teacher? Can you show your people on your team? And the other part of it is, do you remember what it is to be a learner? Because often what happens in teams is that, we ask someone to do something for us, we're trying to delegate, and then we magically expect the person will just get it and will just do it and do it the way that we would do it too,
Yeah.
which doesn't work out. So as a leader, you need to remember what it is to be in that uncomfortable place and be able to teach through it. The fourth key skill is dancing with the system. So when you dance with the system, you recognize that your organization is a living and breathing entity. It's something that literally will react as you do something. So the classic example I like to give here is those leaders that ask a question and that answer their question right away. By default, they're training their teams, don't answer, because Alexander's going to answer anyways, right? So why should I bother?
Yeah.
Now, imagine the same leader asking a question, counting 7 seconds. Now you've just injected something. You brought a change, a small change. Now, the first time you do that, your team's going to go, oh, what's wrong with Alexander? Why isn't he answering his own question? And then after 7 seconds, when you repeat the question, people go, so he really means it. He wants to hear what we think. And then the team starts answering.
Yeah.
So dancing with the system is working with your organization, working with your team in a more dynamic way, not in a big planned, structured way where the plan isn't even followed in the end.
Yeah.
And the fifth key skill is fostering a culture of learning by doing. So in many organizations, what we want to do is we want to encourage people, we try to build a culture where people have the right to make mistakes and fail fast and all those great things. But, I think all of that is not the right approach. What we need to do instead is focus on structured experiments. So Alexander, you're doing this. What are you trying to learn by doing this? And, I'd like you to be able to answer me with, 3, 4 good questions that you can build upon. And then I'll say, okay, well, go for it. Go try. When you've tried, I'll go back to see you and I'll go, okay, so Alexander, what happened? What did you learn? Based on what you learned, what are you going to do next? So when you start solving problems using small steps like this, you can go much faster, much sooner. So that's high level co-creative leadership and high level of the 5 key skills.
Yeah, I see. Stefan, this is exactly what Canadians need right now. Just every single industry, every single organization, Canada-wide. And I just reflected on what you just said. I remember 1 year ago, the Senator Tony Lofreda, our senator, he represents Quebec in Senate. So he just mentioned, he had a speech and he mentioned that more and more Canadians relying on food banks. And when I saw his speech, he just published his speech on LinkedIn, and I just saw his speech, I just listened to it, and I learned what he said. And I thought, but this is not a problem. This is even not a symptom of the problem. It's a cumulative effect that created through the years. it's not responsibility, let's say, usually people would like to blame certain government, but this is not problem of one government. This is problem of different governments who were in power, but step by step, little by little, they just created this kind of challenge. They didn't pay really good attention for different industries in terms of leadership culture in different organizations. So what I told to the senator, because we had 15 minutes conversation after that, and he asked me, what do you think about that? I said, well, I believe that Canadian government should create, under Canadian government responsibility, a huge program Canada-wide, where government should involve every single coach, consultant, trainer, speaker, and all of us, we should be involved in that program and create healthy culture in every single industry, every single organization, every single institution, Canada-wide. He told me that, you know what, it's really interesting approach. And when you, Stefan, thought about 5 approaches, 5-year steps from your book, I thought this is exactly what organizations need in every single industry, because all those points that you covered, Stefan, that I just connected with that food insecurity. Why people leave those organizations? Because leaders don't know how to approach to their people. Leaders don't know how to lead them. Leaders don't know how to present themselves to people as leaders. So people don't buy into their leaders. And if they don't buy into their leaders, they don't buy into their vision. So as a result, leaders, they just manage processes properly. They're very smart. They're really, really smart. They use new AI, new technology, but they don't lead people. And I think, Stefan, that your book, bless you, this is true. I think that your book can be a really good help to different leaders Canada-wide. Of course, we have also different experts from different cities and different provinces. I believe, Stefan, that all of us, we should be involved into that cultural transformational program Canada-wide. I'd like to hear your point about that.
Well, I think when we talk about company culture, the thing that we don't talk about enough is how people need to develop themselves in that context. It's not as if we go and we say, oh, this is the culture we want. Boom, and there it is.
Absolutely.
It's not as easy as that.
Yes.
And for some leaders, they've been leading a certain way for a very long time, and they don't really care to change. This has worked for them. What's the problem?
Yeah.
So company culture is a very tough thing to change, I find. And even with the co-creative leadership stuff, the co-creative leadership work that I do, I need to be very specific in the clients that I work with, because I know for a fact not everyone wants this.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I have another question. Who would you consider as a good client? Because we have different organizations, different leaders, but not every leader is our client. And this is why I want to ask you this question.
So for me, the leaders that I like to work with are, first of all, leaders that are self-aware, leaders that are curious, leaders that want to grow, that want to play, that don't mind being uncomfortable, and that don't mind being uncomfortable in front of their teams sometimes. For me, leaders that see this work as an investment in the future and how can things be better. Because when I work with clients, I can make some inroads fast, but the real lasting work, it takes 9 months, 1 year, a year and a half for things to really take hold. So for me, a leader that wants that has that openness is key. The leaders that I struggle with are the leaders that are more narcissistic, that don't believe they need to change, that don't believe they need to grow. They hire me to work with their people, to coach their people, but themselves, they don't need to change. That never works for me.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They should start within them.
Yeah. But at the same time, you need to have the willingness, because
Absolutely.
doing this work is hard. Like I
Yeah.
remember you asked me earlier what made me who I am.
Yeah.
The part of the story I didn't tell is that when I was in the IT world, in the software development world, I was very much in my head all the time. I wasn't very much in my heart. I wasn't very much in how I feel, in my instincts, and all sorts of stuff. And I had stepped all over that for 20 years. I had closed that side of me off because I wanted to be a high achiever. I wanted to get things done, and emotions kind of got in the way. So I reached a point when I was coaching that I realized that this doesn't work. People don't want that version of me. Some people love it, but that version of me is not for everyone. This new version of me isn't either, but for different reasons. But now, because of my growth, my journey, that took me 2 to 3 years, my personal transformation journey, learning to be with my emotions, learning to be the achiever and the emotional person and the intuitive person. That took me like 2, 3 years to kind of get into my body and to learn what that meant and to be comfortable with that.
Yeah. And based on what you just said, I can say that it's possible. It's possible to transform yourself. And also, did you have a coach during your transformation?
Well, when I did my work, I actually I had signed up for a coaching program for a year. And this happened because I had changed a little bit part of my work approach to let my emotions come through a bit more and to let myself connect a little bit more with the clients that I was working with, to have more empathy and better connection. And eventually part of me didn't want to go back in the bottle, so to speak. And I had to get help, and I felt I was broken. Um, so I went in this training course and I said, "Hey, I'm broken. You need to fix me. Help me, please." And after 3 to 6 months, I started reacting in a way where it's like, I'm not broken. What the heck are you doing? Don't treat me like this. No, I don't need fixing. But I needed to find myself. I needed to connect with myself. So yes, it's possible, but you need those, what I like to call those crucible moments in your life. Those moments that lead you to see that you need to change. You need to have an open mind. And without those crucible moments, if you just keep ignoring them, you're going to stay exactly where you're at.
Yeah. And when you just mentioned about willingness, I can tell you that I've seen a lot of leaders who want to change. They really want to change. And they are ready to change, but they are not willing to change. So when they start that transformation from manager to leader, and when you work with them and you trying to change everything in that organization in the right way, not in just managerial way, also in leadership way, also in serving way. And when leaders see that while they change their habits, productivity goes down. And they say, okay, we don't want to work anymore because our productivity goes down and we just lose money. But the point is, I always ask, when you learn to play tennis and when you hire a coach, so he teach you how to serve and you learn how to serve well. So you have to forget that old kind of service that you used to, and to adapt to a new service, to use just different muscles and serve better. So over time, you will learn how to do it in the best way. It's like you can become even a champion. But it takes time. And of course, during that transformation or transition, productivity goes down in every single domain of our human activity. It happens like that. So this is also very interesting what you said that about willingness. So they want to change, they're ready to change, but they're not willing to change because they have
Well,
different experience. Yeah, yeah, please.
and sometimes too, what happens is that, you know, no one goes in the office saying, I want to be the meanest person in the office, and I want to be absolutely horrible to everyone. No one walks in an office one day saying that.
Yeah,
At the same time, uh, there is effort, there is work. It doesn't happen just like that. So as a leader, you need to be open to kind of share that journey with your team. And you're right, like sometimes people feel there's a lack of productivity, but it doesn't need to be that way. Sometimes the lack of productivity is an hour or two that you're investing to get better the next time around. So it's like, it's not that big of a deal. It depends on how you're looking at it. But I like to do, when I work with clients, one thing I like to do is I like to work with them in the context of what they're already doing. So that sometimes I'll go sit in their management meetings, I'll look at what they're doing, I'll observe, I'll give feedback, but what we're improving is what they're doing. We're not having this other meeting on the side and this other meeting on the side and this other thing on the side. We're doing it as part of what they're already doing.
yes, absolutely.
So, you know, already they're probably not very effective. So if you go in and you're a bit disruptive, you can actually help them get better faster. So
Yeah,
it's not as bad as it seems sometimes in terms of time investment.
yeah, yeah, that's for sure. And Stefan, what would you advise to business owners, to managers, or to C-level people, what they can approach to their leadership style, how they can apply your leadership book in their organization?
It just starts with the noticing. Notice your impact. Notice what your leadership creates. That's the first question that I teach in one of my courses. What does your leadership create? Does your leadership create engagement? Or does it create compliance? People do what you ask them to do because they're afraid of consequences. And if you notice and you notice the signs, then you can start to say, okay, maybe my approach wasn't cool here. Maybe I need to change that. Maybe my choice of words here. And it's about being curious. Like when I teach this to leaders, I have a game, I have a name for this. I call this their leadership game. What's your default operating system? How do you react by default in different situations? And when you start noticing your leadership game in action, you start being able to play with it and manage it instead of having it run you.
Yeah, I see. I see. Thank you for that, Stefan. Thank you for being with us today. So I believe that our next recording will be about applying of your book. So I'm sure that you have already the plan that you use in different organizations, and we can talk about that. And thank you, leadership listeners, for being with us today. Today we had a great guest, Steffan Surdek. He's a leadership trainer, speaker, a great man. And I really thankful to Steffan for being with us because he adds so much value to leaders across different industries and organizations.
Thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it.